Let's go.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks to be this late. So, my name is Sebastien. It's my handle on Twitter. My name is Sebdriven. I'm senior researcher at EPITA. EPITA is an engineering school in Paris, and I create my society called SCTF. I develop some stuff open source like Yeti and Fastier. I'm a team on BoneConf and Oneled project. Here is my GitHub for all my stuff I was developed, and my Medium with all article I wrote. And you have a different article about Chinese actors, Indian actors. It depends when I found. And for this talk, I work about Chinese threat actors during 1 year, and I try to make links between the different threat actors, because many vendors and many CTI society wrote article on different actors, and I found some stuff about these actors, so I can make links between them. I was the first guy to reverse engineering the RTF 8.file kits. It's exploit kits used by Chinese actors in spear phishing. Is a decoy document in attachments for spear phishing. And with exploitation framework, I make many links in different threat actor Chinese. And for me, it's not the same group, but they have the same boss. So it's interesting to have that idea in this mind. And I've many code reused between the different actors because all actors use specifically backdoors, but in backdoors you have different function, and the function is reused between backdoors. The first detection was an APT in Vietnam targeting a public administration in district in Vietnam. And how I have this first detection. I've just analyzed Sidewinder group. Sidewinder is Indian threat actors, and is known to target the Pakistan, and now he targets China. So it's very interesting, and he used an exploit on this CVU. He exploit a buffer overflow in equation editor on a Microsoft Office document. And in this exploit, I found this fingerprint. So you have this string directly on the exploit, and with this string, I make a Yara rules to make a recurrent on VirusTotal, and on VirusTotal, I found many sample of this kit. So a little reminder: this CVU have a variability on COM object, and this exe print mathematics formula in Office document. The joke is Microsoft has stolen the code of this exe because this exe is too old. So if you found a vulnerability in this exe, it's you are the king, because they no patch, because they know, Microsoft has no source. So it's very fun. And with the RTF format, you can put directly the OLE, an OLE object with this CLES ID is numbers in the registry to say to Windows, you deserialize the COM object with this exe. So you craft a specifically COM object, you put directly on the RTF. When you click on the RTF document, the exe is exploit. Another thing, this exe is compiled without ISLR. So it's open bar to create your own exploit on this exe. For example, you have an open source implementation in Metasploit. So you can in Metasploit you can look and you see the different implementation. And the first implementation I've seen is just a downloader of HTML file to execute an HTML file on the computer. The Chinese actors use this exploit on Tibetan citizen directly with using the Metasploiter directly, Metasploit exploit directly. Like I remember Gang Palestinian on the last year. And why Chinese use directly this Metasploit exploit? I think they try the exploit, and if the exploit works correctly and the exploit is reliable, the Chinese actors complexify the exploit kit. And how make that is very simple. In the RTF, they develop this framework to use massively in different apt operations. You create 8.t file, and you put directly on the document. When you make that, you create by word an OLE package, and an OLE package as functionality. When you open the document, the OLE package is directly written in the temp folder. So you can write easily on the disk directly between the document and the disk. When this file is put in the temp folder, you have an exploitation of the buffer overflow to put a shellcode in memory. The shellcode in memory decrypts this file in memory, and in memory the result of this description is a PIR format directly, is an exe, but in memory, not on the disk. And in memory, the execute, this PIR is launched and write on the disk a legit binary signed, like Avast, like Symantec, and a DLL. Here is plugx to make a side loading. And the shellcode exec the legit binary to launch and to map the DLL in memory. the malware is this DLL. On Vietnam, we have the actor use this domain, and this domain resolve on this IP, and I have a connection between all campaign described by Fortinet. And for Fortinet, this campaign, so you have a Maltego graph if you want to read after the different connection on the campaigns, and here you have the IOC pivot between the campaigns. And for Fortinet is Goblin Panda. Goblin Panda is known Chinese actors with Helsing or 1936 CN. At the beginning, these actors begin to target the Tibetan citizen. So it's very interesting the road the road of these three actors. He start he start with easy target, and he complexify the operation to target ministers of Gov in the southeast of Asia. It's an integer screenshot. So it's a payload, and the payload of this campaign is a Chris Keynote. Chris Keynote is a version of plugx modified. And for Fortinet, on Vietnam, his new core rat was used. But it's interesting because we have an overlap of the infrastructure, but is not the same backdoors. And and I found of new core rat a link interesting with this malware. This malware is used on the campaign in Vietnam in New Core Rat, so it's the same group like Goblin Panda, and you have a big overlap with APT1, and the function overlapped in this case is the loading of the plugin of the backdoors. Is the same techniques between Goblin and APT1. I've made a return on this backdoors. I found the similar malwares compiled in 208. So it's before the leak of the APT1. So you have a big connection between APT1 and Goblin Panda. Why? Because when APT1 was doxed, the developers are splitted in different teams, Chinese teams to another group. And Goblin, it's very interesting because we have many similar techniques of APT1. And on this case, this kit is unique. It's the first many people have seen, but I was the first guy to reverse it, and I decided to make an hunting directly on this kit, not the backdoors. Why? Because I searched the top of commander of the operation, not the small group. I want to know which people has both this exploit, or if the Chinese actors were developed this exploit. For me, I've no evidence about that, but it's a society in China has developed the malware, and that's why we found this exploit on with this fingerprint in India and in China. I found a link in Cambodia with APT40. Infrastructure and code reuse overlap. On the second campaign, after the campaign election against Cambodia, you have the first campaign in election described by FireEye, and this campaign is just after, and they reused the same infrastructure. So they use bad flip of malware. I put bad flip on directly on Intether, and I overlap on code reuse with the new core rat. So it's the same at the 3 or 4 function is the same malware like the new core rat. So it's the same developers and the same TTPs, because they use the same kit and the functionality of backdoors. So you have APT40 temperiscope, shared infrastructure with Goblin, shared code with APT1, and you have bad flip, new core rat, and Kruskinote like plugx. In Russia, I found the same kit, and I have a connection between infrastructure and here the backdoor is sysfader. Sysfader is the backdoor like plugx, but is not developed by the same guy, but you have the same functionalities to list processes, to make exfiltration, to make the lateral movement. So it's the same function, but it's not the same code. For Fortinet, Sysfader and new core rat were developed by the same group, Goblin Panda. For me, I don't know, but we have many link with these actors. I found a link with River. River is a malware developed by Chinese actors, and on these actors we have different overlap of the code reuse and of the infrastructure. An interesting thing for Rivers, Goblin is associated with the MSS. The MSS is a Chinese intelligence services. And for Silence and like me, the Chinese structures shared different sample like APT40, Goblin, and IceFog. I've linked different with IceFog. IceFog is a Chinese APT actors target Central Asia, like Mongolia and Kazakhstan. But IceFog has changed the exploit. The group don't exploit the same part of the code of equation editor, but he target equation editor and he use the same package. And interesting thing, he use the persistent of Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word has a startup folder, and if you put a DLL on exe in these folders and you open a document, if you have a document, the DLL or the exe is executed by the exploitation system, and this DLL in startup folder contact the C2 and download an exe. A researcher of FireEye, Anna Cheng, make a good overview on IceFog, and they use the same techniques. The difference is during the time is a backdoor. IceFog change the backdoor for depend on the target and the country. I found this in May 2019, and FireEye make an article on this sample at June. This sample target Kazakhstan government and the defense Ministry of Defense of the Kazakhstan. Goblin Panda reuse the same kit of IceFog, so it changed the exploit, but it keep the RTF kit. Is the same kit, but is not the same exploit, and it target Vietnam. And with this campaign, I have many links with Rancor. Rancor is a threat actor described by Checkpoint, and he targets Cambodia, Vietnam, all of the south or east of Asia. And it's a decoy document, and it's the same target you have here. It's a Goblin document, and it's a Rancor document. And here it's the same name like here. So it's exactly the same target in the decoy document. This is the RTF was printed and in the screen when you open the document. Here is the article of Checkpoint, and here it's my article, and make the Checkpoint make a link in my article on this campaign. And with Intether, I found a big overlap of Goblin Panda on this sample. So I've linked between TTPs like it, and the backdoor is very similar of new core rat. And finally, I found a link with Winty, always in Vietnam, and with the same kit. And the backdoors are different. Our backdoor is used by Winty, but not. Winty is an umbrella word for a Chinese group. For me, there are many different groups For example, guys wants to target video games, wants to target supply chain like Asus, and the malware are completely different. You have a rootkit, you have side loading, you have PowerShell. So for me this group it's too big. You must divide in small groups, and in this one of small groups, they developed a backdoors, and this backdoors is used just in Vietnam. And I work with law enforcement in Vietnam, and to explain how the backdoors works, the different logs and evidence you can find on forensics operation, because many people and administration as target by this backdoor. So for me, all groups I described as a link with the MSS. For me, the MSS bows the exploit, and after the exploit was shared directly in different threat actors group, and the operation and the commandment, the following operation, the following action during operation are the same, and they have the same boss to describe and to write the operation to target the southeast of Asia and the Central Asia. Why? Because this place is very, very important for China, because many countries are used by the new Silk Road of China. So China has an interest, strategic interest to spy and to make many surveillance directly on these countries. Or links are the different preference I use, and my different findings on these different campaigns of these actors. The following research is to demonstrate they have two politics of cybersecurity operation used in the south of east of Asia and Central Asia, and another actors like Aptiten or Lucky Mouse for other country like Japan, like United States, because I have no overlap code or infrastructures between this kind of group. So you have two politics organization think operation differently between this country. And for me, and Felix said that during this presentation, they made the training of the southeast of Asia, and after these groups target another country like Japan or Russia or United States. It's over. If you have a question.
Over. Thank you, Sebastien. Awesome. Are there any questions for Sebastien? Raise your hand, get a ducky. No? No one? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another warm hand.